I'd like to begin with a very fitting quote that I think sums up beautifully and can serve as the entire point of this whole video. And it's a quote that comes from Hubert H. Humphrey, and it's a very simple and short quote, and it simply states, quote, "The greatest gift in life is friendship, and I have received it," end quote. And I just love that. Over the last couple of weeks of my time before I had to leave, I said goodbye to all my family, all my high school friends, and yes, a very sad goodbye to attendance girl, which I covered pretty extensively in the last video. But during that time of saying goodbye, I'll tell you, man, I truly and honestly valued every goodbye, every farewell, everyone's words of wisdom, whether it was a long, deep conversation with a close friend or just a simple good luck from, an acquaintance at a party as we tapped beer cans in passing or clinked, bottles. It was, a time of sadness, but it was also mixed with anxiousness because, by this time I was simply just waiting to leave. I was basically waiting to start the next phase of my life. And man, those feelings that you get when you're about to start something new, when you're about to embark on this long journey. There's these mix of emotions that can swirl inside of you. Sometimes it can feel like you're maybe even standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into the unknown. Your heart kind of races and your stomach feels like it's tied in knots. There's excitement because you're about to step into something new. But being human, there can always be that small sense of doubt, that apprehension, the fear of the unknown. And how many times have you been there? How many times have you experienced that? I mean, think about those times where you felt that fluttering feeling in your chest, that sensation inside of you that reminds you of all the, what ifs running through your mind. What if I'm not prepared enough? What if I don't make it? What if I completely fail? What if this is not the right choice or not the right path that I should be going on? It can sometimes feel like you're literally carrying this weight on your shoulders, this burden of uncertainty. But underneath all of that, if you dig deep enough, there's also these other feelings, a quiet whisper that's telling you something different, like maybe, just maybe this journey will, turn out to be something wonderful. It could turn out to be something good. It could lead to something great. It could lead to something beautiful, an adventure that will make all of this fear and anxiety worth it. And, at 19, it could appear to be quite a daunting task. That was 34 years ago. I mean, I guess at any age, it could appear quite daunting. But looking back after all of this time, having to manage and deal with these complex blend of fear and anticipation, we're always looking for reassurance, a sign that tells us, yeah, we're doing it right, we're on the right path. But I tell you, in all of these years, one thing that I can tell you is that there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees, man. I mean, so many things can happen, but sometimes you just have to go with your gut or go with your intuition and just go for it. And so, as I mentioned, in the last video, I got this call early in the afternoon, the day before I was leaving, and it was Tom Sawyer. And I answered the phone, and he was like, in his hyped up way, "Dude, what are you doing right now?" And I'm like, nothing, And before I can get another word out, he's like, "Well, come over for a second, man. I got something for you." I'm like, "Right now?" He's like, yeah, right now, man. You got to hurry up, man. I got to be somewhere. And I'm like, "All right, I'll be there in a couple of minutes. I'm leaving right now." Hello? He'd already hung up on me, man. Hello, everyone. My name is Bishop Friesch, and wherever in this world you may be watching or listening to me, let me first thank you for taking the time to be here and welcome you to this project that I call My Life Through Music, a project where I talk about the songs and music that were either there at the time or they describe the thoughts, feelings, or emotions I was experiencing at these particular places and at these particular times. And the song that was there many times and represents these memories is Entre, Nous by Rush, released in 1980. Entre nous is a French expression, I believe, and it means between ourselves or something that is said confidentially. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more and what it means in the context of this particular story. But this song, Entre Nous by Rush, as I mentioned, has all the cool, all the awesome, and all the unique sounds that we're accustomed to hearing from Rush, including the incredible percussion work and the drum fills by the great Neil Peart. But in addition to that, it's a song or maybe even an ode to friendship. What I think it does is it celebrates the beauty of understanding and maybe even embracing differences that friends have. And in my opinion, this song really beautifully, it paints this clever and vivid picture of, a couple, maybe two, or even more close friends. And it uses, analogies and metaphors such as novels filled with stories about one another that we haven't even read yet. And distant planets where, yes, they may be far apart, but the space between them encourages them to grow and to foster this stronger connection. And so with all these clever analogies, there's many more in the song, it also shows us that it's not just the closeness that makes the friendship great, but how the differences can create this fiery, dynamic bond, showing us that true friendship can thrive, not despite, but because of the contrast and the differences that we have, that quite frankly makes each person special and unique. And because this video is about, Tom Sawyer and I parting ways for now, it was there so many times as we listened to tons and tons of music. But not only that, it's the perfect song to describe, not only my friend Tom Sawyer, but in some way, all of my friendships. And here's why. So I pull up to his house, and as I mentioned before, it wasn't far from mine, maybe a few miles. And I get there, and he's already sitting in his car. I mean, this guy is always on the go. His mind and his body is always on the go. And so I go over to the passenger side, and I look in, and I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And then he motions with his head and his eyes to look behind me towards the front of his house. He's like, And so I turn my head, and I finally notice this large brown paper grocery bag sitting on top of one of the entry walls in front of the house. You remember those brown paper grocery bags that you used to get at the grocery store before they went to plastic? Well, it was one of those, And so I look back at him with this kind of like confused look on my face. And he leans forward in the seat and he motions again, his eyes even wider, and his body's like, go grab that bag, dude. And I'm pretty sure that if I was any closer to him, he probably would have reached over and slapped me on the side of the head. And so I go over and I grab the bag and I look inside of it, and it's full of cassette tapes. It's full of cassette tapes, man. Tapes that he had made for me from his very, very extensive, very comprehensive, diverse, and broad collection of music. A collection of music that I'd never even seen before. And he made tape after tape after tape with all these bands and this music. And it was, just stuff that I'd never seen before. And really, truly, it was the most thoughtful gift I could have ever received at the time. the gift of music. And I look over at him, with this mixture of disbelief and gratitude and amazement on my face. And I walk over, towards the car, and I'm just shaking my head with this, bewildered look on my face. And I got to the passenger side, and I was like, man, this is... And then he cuts me off, grinning, dude, you probably aren't going to be able to listen to any of this when you get to boot camp, but when you get to wherever you're going to be stationed, this will tide you over for a while. And I just kept, looking through the bag, shaking my head. And then I looked up, and I remember I took this big inhale, and I looked over, and I looked north. I remember looking north, and in the landscape, it was Black Mountain. Black Mountain was to the north of where we were at, and it was this big prominent mountain in the Cave Creek area. And I'm just speechless. And he could tell that there was something else on my mind. And then he mentions, with his head, he's like, get in for a second, And so I sat there, I get in the car, I sat there, in the passenger side, just looking out the windshield into this brown blur of desert. And, here I am, I'm sitting next to this guy, where everything seemed to always work in his favor. Everything seemed to just automatically go his way. He had this luck about him, everything just gravitated and came to him almost, at an instant if you ever wanted it. It was amazing to me. And I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be just like that. And I just, without thinking, I blurted out, I'm like, dude, how am I going to continue? How am I going to do this? Go on this journey. I have no idea where I'm going. How am I going to do this without your guidance, without you? I want to be more like you. And he's like, he starts shaking his head in this deranged sort of way, and he was laughing hysterically. And I'm like, look at him like, what was wrong with you? And he goes, dude, I don't want you to be like me. You shouldn't want to be like me. You can't. I want you to be you, he says to me. You can't be me. You got to be you. You can only be you. Haven't you been paying attention this whole time? All this time we've been spending together. And he can get real intense, He's like, you can't be anybody else, dude. Haven't you at least learned that? You have to be you. And I'm just sitting there just trying to take it all in. And he's like, and you know what? Everything you need to be you is already inside of you. It's all there. We've been spending time together. You've been finding out and learning how to find this whole time. But you have to continue digging and keep learning yourself. You have to be you. It's all there. It's all there. And he just kept repeating it. It's all there. It's all inside. And here I am. I'm trying to process all this, and I'm just sat there silently for a couple seconds, and then I kind of like gathered myself, and I looked up at him, as if I understood, what he was talking about, even though I didn't know exactly or the fullness of it. And then he says in his joking way, he's like, "You made me late enough. Get out." I'm like, oh. So I get out and I close the door, and then he flashes his mischievous trickster smile, almost as if he would always know just a little bit more than me, and he always would know more than I ever will. And then he spun his car around in a 180, and I watched him tear off down the long dirt road that led to the main paved road, leaving me in a cloud of dust. And I remember, that moment, this sad sinking feeling in my stomach, because, I was really going to miss him. I was going to miss him very much. One recurring theme in this project is my huge gratitude for the incredible people who have shaped my life, throughout the years, all the things that they have done, and among them is Tom Sawyer, a truly special and important friend. And as I think of all of these people, friendship is not easily defined. To me, friendship is this deep, long-lasting connection built upon, just so many things, like the experiences that we share together. It's about really honestly and sincerely and genuinely caring for, each other's well-being and supporting them and encouraging them in all the things that they do. And yes, even giving them some tough love when it's necessary. True friendship, I think, really challenges us. And at the same time, in those challenges, it strengthens us and it encourages and helps us to grow. And one last thing I'm gonna talk about before I finish up here is that while similarities, usually bring us together as friends in the beginning, we come together because we have similar beliefs or similar ideas or things that we like to do, hobbies, whatever it is. Similarities, they usually bring us together in the beginning, but it's usually, I found, our differences. It's our differences that make the friendships that we have truly dynamic and truly, deep and enriching. The unique perspectives and the different views and ideas that the other people have, other friends have, that give our relationships, even more depth and even more of a spark, if you will. Like I said, it encourages us to grow and to see the world differently and to appreciate those differences. My friendship, not only with Tom Sawyer, but with so many others, and I'm going to talk about them, throughout this project. These differences, they help us, see each other in our entirety. We're not always going to agree all the time, which is, I think, a good thing. I mean, how boring would that be, But it's our mutual respect and our understanding that strengthens that bond of friendship. And it's the balance of the similarities along with the contrasts that make these connections, like I said, deep and special. And it helps us grow even more and closer together. And sometimes that is best done by spending some time apart, which is what Tom Sawyer and I were about to do. And this is why Entre, Nous by Rush is right here in my Life Through Music playlist. And as always, I'll leave a link to the song in the description below. But I would like to encourage you to check it out whenever you have time on whatever platform you access your music these days. As you listen, I want to ask you and to challenge you to look at who in your life do you have this kind of friendship with? And why do you have that friendship? Or why do you have that relationship? And what do you agree on? And what don't you agree on? I want you to consider the words of this song and how it might strengthen and enhance each and every friendship in your life. Getting on the plane, I was really full of this mixture of sadness, anxious energy, and excitement, all wrapped up in one. And as I sat down in my assigned seat, it happened to be next to a window. I pulled out my Walkman. Remember Walkmans? I pulled out my Walkman, and I put on those big, bulky, cheap headphones. Remember those ones with the spongy foam pads on the outside of them, and even the person next to you could hear what you were listening to? Well, I pulled them out and I put them over my ears, and as the plane taxied down the runway, I just looked out the window and I pushed play. I'll be there in a couple minutes. I'm getting ready to, jump in my car. Take 2, 3. Take 3. And so, as I mentioned in the last video, I get this call from, Tom Searles. Of a mixture of sadness, ancient energy, and I put them over my ears, and as the plane taxied down the runway, I just looked out the window and I pushed play. Until we meet again, my friend, this is not the end. With every step and every bend, our paths will cross again.